Hi everyone, my name is Alex Rawlings and you're watching August edition of Just Ask Alex. You've been sending in some really interesting questions this month, and actually it's been a challenge to just pick 2 topics to talk about today. But the fields that we're going to cover now are very important for any language learner. Those are how to improve your pronunciation to sound like a native, and how to fit language learning into your schedule permanently. Unlike the last 2 videos, I'm going to talk mainly in English this time, just to make everything a bit clearer, but of course we'll be throwing in some other languages along the way. So let's get started. Having good pronunciation is important in your new language because it makes you sound genuine. Eventually, you want to be able to get away with sounding like a native speaker. But I think it's something that you can worry about too much as a language learner. And actually, there are at least 2 things that you can really work on first that are just as important for making yourself understood: stress and intonation. Getting the stress right on words is important in every language. In some, it can even make the difference between 2 entirely different meanings. But remember, the people that you speak to will be used to hearing a lot of different dialects and accents in their native language, but you still need to pronounce things in a way that they're expecting. That's not always to do with the individual sounds you make, and actually to do with which part of the word you emphasize. Some languages will have accents or spelling rules to help you out, but with others, you might have to be a bit more careful to make sure that when you first learn a new word, you've got it right. Stress is important in English as well. Would you understand if someone asked you if they could use your washing machine? How long would it take you to work out that actually they meant your washing machine? Think about the difference as well between an orange tree and an orange tree. One is one that grows oranges, and the other is just a tree that is the colour orange. It may sound like something really small, but if you work hard on it, especially in the early stages, it will take you really far with your language learning and that much closer to attaining fluency. The second thing to think about is intonation. This is like stress, but over a whole phrase or sentence. Intonation varies greatly across different languages, and it's something that you should really try to listen out to, especially when talking to native speakers, even if you're just speaking English. I'm now going to try and show this to you by giving you a random sentence in 5 different languages. I'm going to start off with the intonation that you would hear in British English, and then I'm going to tell it to you in Russian, German, Greek, and Spanish. Listen out carefully to which part of the sentences are emphasized in each language. When we arrived at the airport, we went straight to the shop and bought a sandwich. Когда мы приехали в аэропорт, мы сразу пошли в магазин и купили бутерброд. Als wir im Flughafen angekommen sind wir direkt ins Laden gegangen und haben ein Sandwich gekauft. Όταν φτάσαμε στο αεροδρόμιο, πήγαμε αμέσως στο μαγαζί και αγοράσαμε ένα σάντουιτς. Cuando llegamos al aeropuerto, fuimos enseguida a la tienda y compramos un bocadillo. So as you can hear, each language emphasizes different things, and there are different parts of each sentence that go up or go down in terms of the intonation. Now, if I used a British English intonation in each of those languages, the chances are that I'd probably be understood. But the person that I'm speaking to isn't expecting me to say it like that, and if I start to use an English intonation, my pronunciation immediately starts to sound slightly more foreign. Когда мы приехали в аэропорт, мы сразу пошли в магазин и купили бутерброд. Or let's even try that the other way around. When we arrived at the airport, we immediately went to the shop and bought a sandwich. As you might be able to tell from the English version with Russian intonation, you can understand what's being said, but it sounds a bit strange. Again, this is just a small thing, but just by listening carefully when learning your new language, it's something that you can completely master, and that will take you really far. Once you feel confident about stress and intonation, it's time to start thinking more carefully about how you're actually forming individual sounds. The reason why I've left this till last is because it's by far the most difficult of the 3 tasks. The first thing to remember is that there are very few sounds in your new language that are exactly the same as in your native tongue. You need to listen out very carefully to how each individual sound is formed in order to work out how to reshape your mouth. One way to practice this is to get hold of a recording of someone speaking in the language that you are learning. Then record yourself repeating everything that has been said word for word. Play the 2 recordings back and listen carefully to what differences there are in the sounds. If you're an English speaker, then some things that you should be listening out for are vowels, and of course letters that don't exist in English, such as rolled R's and guttural sounds. It can be difficult to learn to make entirely new sounds, but I guarantee that if your stress and your intonation is good, you haven't got anywhere near as much to worry about as you might think. The second thing that we're going to talk about is how to organise your schedule the most efficiently and how to stick to it. It might be difficult to imagine that you do have time to learn a whole new language, but I promise that if you look carefully at your schedule, you do. As long as you set reasonable expectations of what you want to achieve, and perhaps even write out your goals for the end of the month or the end of 2 months, you should be able to achieve them. Language learning doesn't have to be something that takes over your life. In fact, you probably don't have to spend as much time on it as you think to get results. I recommend that you try to study 3 to 4 days a week on alternate days, and that you study for no more than an hour to an hour and a half each day. Split that time up into some time in the morning, some time in the afternoon, and some time in the evening. That way you'll definitely have time to review what you've already done, cover new material, and of course, give yourself time for that stuff to sink in. Make to-do lists and give yourself big ticks whenever you've achieved anything. Keep a journal, take tests, or find some other way to keep track on how much progress you're making. You may feel frustrated about how slow things seem to be going at first. Learning a new language is not always easy, but it is doable. Anyone can learn a new language so long as they work to their own rhythm and set their own pace. So next time you come home and want to turn on the TV, why not spend 15 to 20 minutes practicing your language first? Do that regularly and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. So that was it for today. As always, if you have more questions, you can contact me via my blog at www.rawlings.com or tweet with the hashtag JustAskAlex. Good luck with your language learning, and I'll see you next month. Bye-bye.